Final hour for the week. OverDrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, Jamie Noodles, McLennan. We got a big hour. Our boy Jonas Siegel later in the hour. And the Leafs being red hot when he makes the goaltending tandem. Auston Matthews, can he get back in the Rocket race? Matthews playing with Marner tonight. Still no Jake McCabe, no Domi, no Pacioretty, no Camp. But those guys are going to return, and then they're going to have to figure out what they're going to do here, right? Like at some point pretty soon, you're going to have to make some really tough calls.
So are all four of those guys locks for you? Like locks to be back in the lineup, after the
yes.
Barring a crazy trade or whatever. Well, after the deadline, are all four of those guys
McCabe for sure, Domi for sure. Those two are playing.
Yeah.
Pacioretty, if he gets back to the way he was playing, the 5-7 games before he got hurt, I think they'll find a role for him. I think he'll play because I think they trust him. Second, third line, whatever. I keep forgetting Bobby McMahon. McMahon's hurt too. McMahon's a part of this as well. So I think McMahon will play. I think Pacioretty will play. Camp is an interesting one for me because I don't know if they love what he's been bringing. I think there'd be a bit of a market out there because he can't. He's a responsible player. He can kill some penalties. He can win some faceoffs. His contract is not so overbearing that you couldn't handle it if you're one of the bottom 8-10 teams in the league that needs some help or depth or whatever. So there may be a market for him out there. I could see them moving off him, but I think what we're getting to is, Grabenkin's going to go down. I think they're going to move off Nick Robertson. I think that'll be it. I think Pontus Holmberg. I think Berube likes him. Like he likes the way he battles on pucks, and he's not flash. He's not going to put up a lot of numbers, but he sees something consistent in him that he likes. I think he's playing on the second line tonight. But I think Pontus Holmberg will be fighting for his spot. And the same thing, unfortunately, for Fraser Minton, unless he really keeps up his pace. Really continues to play and contribute, be physical, and look like a veteran.
What about Dewar?
Yeah, Dewar's a guy I don't know.
Dewar. Yeah, I don't.
I never. I am with you. I don't know why I said that because I think I've heard it both ways. But I think they like him. Yeah. I think they like him. I think he can. I think he's a 13th forward though. But the question is, does Ryan Reeves play? Like these are all things that don't have to be determined right now.
No, not at all.
Injuries are going to keep popping up. But in a hypothetical. Game one, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, we said we would get to that, and everyone's healthy, and you presume they add a piece probably at the deadline, it's going to be interesting to see who they decide doesn't fit. I mean, Calle Jarnkrok's another guy. Is he going to return at any point? Yeah. Like, what if he returns in 3 months and can play? I don't know. I mean, he's got another year left on his deal, and he's a capable player, cagey veteran player.
Yeah, kind of
a lot of options.
Yeah, he would be like an added bonus, almost like a deadline acquisition for some depth and all that. That's how you can treat it. And he has scored 20 goals in the league. It's just, can he get back to, again, you're jumping on a moving train and you're out for months.
Yes.
Man.
And skating is his thing, really. Like he's a guy that's got to keep up and push pace. And but there's another name. A lot of veterans. And certain guys are going to play. McCabe, of course, should play, will play. Domi's going to play. They've committed to him. Everyone else, I think, could be fighting. I think McMahon plays, but he's got to stay on his toes. He's got to play well.
Yeah, there was a time where, was it the start of this season?
Yeah, he didn't have a good start.
He didn't have
Came
a
out of
great
the lineup
start.
at one point.
Yeah.
Didn't have a good start.
And then got the message and kind of got back into the groove.
Exactly. Right? And I have faith that he will do that. But we'll see what Jonas can tell us about that later this hour. So last night was an absolute kick in the junk for yours truly.
Double.
If you smell what the
Wilson
is cooking.
And that's not going to help because not only did the Packers lose, they covered. So they lose and they cover. It was a middle, and it was a disgusting one last night. Rick Barry. Yeah. Listen, you guys are rolling, man. We got to stop the bleeding here. Good pick last night. Good pick.
Noodles, since the speech, since the Al Pacino Any Given Sunday speech, I believe we're 5-1.
Yep.
I believe in 5-1, and we're not slowing down.
Yeah, bad voodoo, man. That was a great ball game. Great second half in particular. I thought it was pretty sloppy in the first, the Packers in particular, but that's how we thought it would play out, right? I thought close ball game, and I thought the Packers could win. I think they had a chance to. I think the call on Watson basically ended the game. But what do you make of it? I mean, Detroit's won 11 in a row. They're 12-1, and they found a way to beat the Packers again.
Okay, so first and foremost, you said it. Unbelievable game. So many things happened. The chess matchup was fascinating to me, and I think this will explain Dan Campbell going forward on fourth down late. But it came down to one play. You said it was a one-play difference. The Watson penalty to me was it. I got to tip my cap to the Lions because they threw everything at the Packers and the kitchen sink and still found a way. I thought it was one of the grittiest football wins I've ever seen, especially considering the injuries they've endured. And the fact that they didn't run the ball well yesterday. The Detroit Lions didn't. Gibbs averaged 2.9 yards per carry. Like, that's unheard of for that guy. So I sit here and I look at it, and I say it could have went either way, but the Lions found a way, and it's just unbelievable. It's an unbelievable win. But, Hayes, you talked about the first half. One of the things that I found fascinating was on defense for Detroit, I'm sitting there and I'm watching, and I'm like, they can't sustain doing this. And at the half, they've got it. Like, Green Bay's got to make adjustments and figure this out. They were bringing everyone, crazy blitzes, exotic stuff, putting their DBs in a real tight position, and basically hoping they get to Jordan Love before he shreds them. So all of a sudden, I don't know if you remember this, but they're like, okay, instead of, like, the pass rush was getting there, we're going to go to the shallow route to Christian Watson. Then he fumbles that. And I'm like, holy smokes, like, it's a tough game to play, but the Lions are executing it. And I think at the half, LaFleur, the offensive coaches, kind of got together, obviously made their adjustments because it is a very big gamble. And the Pack kind of had their way offensively in the second half. And I think that's kind of why Dan Campbell went for it. I thought that was also crazy, but it obviously worked. But in his mind, he probably sat there and said, we give Jordan Love, 35 seconds with our situation right now, there's a possibility that they get down there and make a huge play. So all in all, wild game. And I think that there's a good chance we'll see these guys play again in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Wow.
I agree.
Luke,
two very good football teams.
Yeah.
I know. Luke, I asked Hayes before you came on last hour, 2 years ago, would you envision Dan Campbell and this Detroit team dominating like they are right now? Was there any world where you thought, okay, they're on a trajectory to be this great of a team right now?
No, not even. I can't. I'd love to sit here and tell you I did. I might have been the opposite side of those. I thought that this thing was going to end in the ultimate train wreck. Even middle of last year, I would sit here and say to myself, you can't sustain winning football games doing the crazy things that they do. Like last night, to sit here and say, this is how we're going to play defense because we're that hurt, was a wild, wild, wild idea to me. And it worked for a half, which was really all they needed. To sit here and say, we've got a game-winning field goal, potentially, it's going to lead the other team with 30 seconds, and say, no, that's not enough. We're going to go for it on 4th and 1 after we just got stoned on 3rd and 1 is wild to me. And to be honest with you, I'm probably still in the belief that at some day the clock's going to strike midnight on these calls. But I bet a lot of Lions fans think that's not going to happen. They're going to go to the Super Bowl. And after games like last night and the wins they figured out this year, you've got to be honest with yourself and say they got a shot to do it.
Yeah, they do.
Definitely got a shot to do it.
Well, and I think in large part what Campbell was doing, I agree with your assessment of how he felt about his own defense, Green Bay's defense. I also think he looked at it and said, if there's a chance our defense can hold up. If we get stuffed here, we'll go to overtime. I feel good about our offense if we win the coin toss at that point. But he loves his offensive line, and he should. His offensive line is just they're maulers, man. And I think he probably learned something from the previous 4th and short. I think was on their own 30 or own 35 or whatever. They throw a sweep out there, and it gets stuffed. And then on the last one, it was like, we're going downhill, man. Like, just hand the ball off. Goff almost fell, which was crazy. But just go downhill. And if you go downhill with that offensive line, it was like the Eagles, in years past, and I guess the Eagles still now to a certain extent. But you can always find a yard. And That's an incredible mentality to have, an incredible confidence to have. And it's amazing the way that O-line keeps Goff upright, man. He's like Greg Maddux in the pocket. He never gets touched, and he's just efficient, and he hits the corners. Yep. And he threw the one bad pick last night. But other than that, the guy's a machine, and he never gets touched. He never gets hit. It's incredible.
And he's got a very strong arm. Like, one of the things that I find very impressive with him is they do a lot of under center play action. And you saw it early where it's like, hey, you got to think of this again. I know when we're watching it, you're like, oh, you know, he just threw it down the field. But I'm like, this guy takes the snap under center, turns his back to the defense, puts the ball in the running back's stomach, pulls it out, turns around, puts his back foot in the ground, and on an absolute rope hits Amon-Ra St. Brown or Patrick 15, 20 yards down the field right in the chest. Mm-hmm. And he consistently does it. Again, I know it's little things, but even Laporta caught a few of those yesterday where I'm like, man, this guy is back there slinging the pill.
Yeah. Both of them.
Yeah, it was impressive.
Both of them. Like that throw by Love to Tucker Kraft was like a machine, man.
Yes, even the one, it wasn't a touchdown, but he had a completion to Christian Watson in his own side of the field.
Right.
And it was like a millimeter. I'm like, this is like both of those guys. Again, like, would it shock me if that ends up being the divisional round or obviously depending on seeding, the NFC Championship? Absolutely not. And buckle up.
I wouldn't be.
It will be another great one.
Well, I'm curious. We're chatting with Luke Willson. Like, the Packers have now lost 4 games. They've lost twice to Detroit, once to Philadelphia, once to Minnesota. And 3 of those games were one possession, end of the game, 2-minute drill type games. Like, what do you make of that from a Packer perspective? That now you're not going to win the division, you're not competing for it anymore. You're going to go to the playoffs, but when you lose to elite teams. Yet those elite teams are the ones you're going to have to go against once you get to the playoffs in their building.
Totally, I'm with you, and I'll sit here, Hayes, and be honest with you and say that I don't think they have as much talent on offense as the Detroit Lions do, specifically in the offensive line. But where you need to make that up is you need to play smarter and more disciplined. And you look at some of the penalties yesterday, and I did think that Detroit got away with a few, but I'm sure if we dig into the film, Green Bay probably got away with a few as well. Like the Christian Watson penalty, it doesn't need to happen. Like, I've run that pick/rub route a million times myself. You've done your job. You don't need to seek the collision there. I have a very hard time believing we're having this conversation. If that touchdown counts and Jacobs is in, could the Lions go down and score? Absolutely. But it's a whole different scenario than what we saw last night.
And they got to score a touchdown
I think for
point.
Green Bay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that would have been 4 touchdowns for Jacobs.
Yeah. They got to talk like, okay, we're losing these games. They're tight. We just got to get even cleaner with our football. And they got shot. Again, you can't watch that game yesterday, and you just said their 4 losses are to the best teams in the conference, and say that they don't have a chance. Are they favorites? No, but they got a shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do. Luke, I wanted to ask you, the NFL upheld that suspension for the hit on Trevor Lawrence. Like, were you fine with that? Like, what do you make of that?
Totally. I that's a big suspension, obviously, in that league, 3 games. I thought the hit was disgusting. He's had a few other instances. Like, I remember earlier this year, I think he punched somebody in the face, got away with it. Like, it's time to pay the piper. You want to do this stuff? I'm not a big believer in the NFL's discipline committee trying to, pick on guys, which I think is the narrative the Texans are trying to create. That hit was ridiculous. Didn't need to happen. He should serve all 3 of those games, and that's that.
Yeah, and he's not going to help himself by posting a picture of the Joker or whatever, and he's like, if you want a villain, I'm your villain. It's like, all right, that's so stupid. Like, why put yourself out there even more? But he's done it.
Correct.
All right, so you guys are now down 2. You're humming a little bit. Rick Barry obviously is inspiring. Noodles in his little speech there. Very inspiring. It's time to stop the blood. Time to stop the bleeding. Let's bring in my friend. Dell's brother and I conducting our research on the fly here because we're professionals and we trust each other. And AB, we're in one here, man. We got a couple of games here where, again, we're +2. We have confidence. We should be feeling confident. But these are tough games, man. Doogie with a significant jam job to start the week.
Yeah.
The 1 o'clock game is Vikings -5.5 at home against the Falcons on FanDuel. We need this one. We need this one, AB. Where's your head at? Throw me some tremendous information.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't think it's as difficult as a decision as some think. I really think that Minnesota matches up really well against Atlanta. I know it's a bit of a high score, a high total, but I do like the Vikings, Hazy B. The Falcons, look, in order to have any success on offense, they have to establish a run and have to get a play action going. That's going to be difficult against the Vikings' third-ranked rushing offense, against the league's #1 blitzing team. They're second in sacks, so I think they're going to put Kirky Pumpkins in an absolute blender. They lead the NFL in interceptions. We're talking about Kirk Cousins. He's thrown 6 picks in his last 3 games, not to mention the 8 fumbles that he also has over the course of the last 6 weeks. This guy cannot protect the football, and that is going to be costly against an offense like Minnesota, who could drive the ball down the field against a secondary that is giving up more completions than any other team in football. It's a pure matchup thing here, Hazy B. I think Minnesota matches up really, really well. I see them winning this thing by a touchdown.
Okay. Wow. All right. I mean, listen, I hear you.
Hayes?
Yeah, what do you got? Go ahead.
You're gonna do this. You're gonna let Kirko Bang's cousin go back into Minnesota with 5.5 points against a veteran guy against a very finicky, high pressure defense in Bryan Flores. You're gonna sit here and okay that pick.
Well, listen, the redemption game would concern me if it was any other quarterback but Kirk Cousins, because he is a pick-throwing machine. It's a bodily function for this guy. He can't wait to throw an interception. He threw 4 last week, and he cost us, man. You were on the Chargers.
Yeah.
If Kirk Cousins had any presence in the pocket, they win that ball game. The one concern I do have is it's a playoff game, obviously, for the Falcons. Every single week is going to apply there. Them and the Bucs are chasing the NFC South. They're both a 500 club. But Kevin O'Connell knows quarterbacks. Like the way he is operating right now, what he's doing with Sam Darnold, what I think he did with Kirk Cousins, quite frankly, he knows exactly what makes this guy tick. I'm cool with laying the points. It's a big number. Vikings are clearly better. I also think Sam Darnold, it's somewhat of a redemption game for him. Being like, all right, you left. If you stuck around, I'm not even sure if the Vikings wanted you to stick around, but I wouldn't be here. But I am here, and I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity. I think Kirk Cousins throws at least 1 pick. I love where Flores and that defense is at this week. It's a big number, but we'll lay it.
I like
Vikings,
it.
5.5.
Love that.
Touchdown.
All right.
Love that. I'm taking the 5.5.
Okay.
We're going into the next game.
It's a big
Down
number.
1.
It's a big number. All right, so this is where the blender comes back into play. Doogie Jam Job Classic here, because the Seahawks, they're in the driver's seat in the NFC West. Cardinals laying 2.5 against your Seattle Seahawks on FanDuel. This is the pick of the week. Where is your head at, Luke?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Seattle. And do I feel great about it? No. But
I knew it.
Sit here. I
love it. Yeah.
Again, I'm not a big believer in Kyler Murray. Haven't been all year. He's been overhyped, in my opinion. Also, Modern Warfare 3 is out, so you got to take the numbers after that.
Been out for a month.
Been
out for a month.
Yeah.
They
What's the
stunk
record
for a
in the last month?
Yeah, that is
What's
concerning.
the record in the last month?
Concerning.
Very concerning.
You look at this team, Seattle's playing better defensively. Again, I got to take the points. I think it's going to be a very tight game. Tough to beat a team twice. Seattle's beat them once. That was a gross, grimy game. The thing that I like about this one for Seattle's offense is they got actually dominated in that win. So I think that the offense will be able to learn a lot from that film and score. Every time we've played Arizona, it seems like it's some weird game, a tie or a field goal. I could see this thing, somebody misses a kick and it's a 1-point game, or you're up 2 and someone has a 2-minute drive to go up. I got to take the points. Again, do I feel great about it? 2.5 is a weird number.
Yep.
But I think right now, the way Seattle's playing, it's the right pick.
Yeah. Listen, it's a coin flip game. It's a tough game, but it's mandatory Arizona wins this game. I mean, you could argue that both ways in terms of chasing the division down. But
it might be on the line here. The division is pretty well on the line in this game.
Yes. I agree.
Well,
I think the Niners are done.
Quick question, though. Have you talked to O about this, or are you just going out on a limb? Like, is this a team effort, or do you just decided, you know what, like, I'm going to leave that guy behind because I know what I'm talking about?
Noodles, me and O have boardroom meetings every day. Every day we're in the boardroom, talking it out, crunching what's going on here.
Right.
Okay.
I just want to make sure because I have noticed, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 times this year where out of nowhere he'll go, yeah, that kind of wasn't like Luke wanted that, so I went along with
he'll
it.
Patrick Waugh this guy all day and be like, oh, yeah, well, I guess he made that pick.
Yeah, what do you want from me?
King.
He wanted it. That's what
he's
like.
Don
That's
King.
what he'll say.
If it's a win, it was him. If it's a loss, it was the other guy's fault.
Especially when it's
I
Seattle
have
or
with this to
Stafford.
protect myself here, Noodles. Yeah. I wanted the Cardinals, but O came over the top and wanted Seattle.
All right, I love that play.
There you go.
I love that. We need a little controversy here, AB. We would never do that. You and I, we support each other. We put a shield up publicly. Privately, we'll be honest. Publicly, we have a shield up. All right, Chargers in Arrowhead on Sunday night. Kansas City laying 3.5. 3.5, pretty big spread considering what's going on with Kansas City and the history of this team within the division. Kansas City went into L.A. earlier in the year, I think won 17-10. Where's your head at here, Al's brother? What's your tremendous information? Chargers, Chiefs, Kansas City laying 3.5.
Like it's tough because at some point you just think that Kansas City's going to turn it around, but we've gone to that well so many times, Hazy B, where we thought this has to be the week. It's got to be, and it hasn't been. And last week they damn near lost to the Vegas Raiders, a terrible football team. Their coach literally said that they were awful like 4 days before the game, and they only won because they screwed up and fumbled it while in scoring position. I just don't think I can take the Kansas City Chiefs and more than a field goal here. I think the Chargers are a good football team. Harbaugh's got them playing really well, but it's more so that Kansas City has been quite fraudulent. This is maybe the most fraudulent 12-1 team I've ever seen in my life. Look at the last 4 weeks. Hayes, look at the last 4 weeks,
Noodles.
okay?
Noodles knows.
It's insane.
Scares me, man.
They beat Vegas by 2. Seriously lucky. They beat Carolina only by a field goal. They lost to Buffalo by 9, and they only beat Denver because they got a nice blocked kick at the end of the game. They are not a good team. This offense is only averaging 23 points. I think that the Chargers could definitely get to at least 20 to keep it to within a field goal. I'd want to take the points
Scares
here.
me, man.
I'm going to say just one thing, and I think Luke is probably going to concur. Like, the thing is they win, and they know how to win. It doesn't – like, I've played on teams that were really good where it was like – we just did enough to win that night, and that's kind of what I said.
That helps. That's what I think they'll win the game. I just don't think they'll win by 4.
Last night.
Exactly.
I feel like, you saying they're fraudulent. I'm concerned about that. That's concerning.
There's a famous story.
Imagine
calling
an 11-1 team that is back-to-back Super Bowl champions fraudulent. That's your partner, Hayes.
It scares me, man.
You don't think that we're +1 Monday night? You're out of your mind right now.
Well, there's a story that you can find online where Kevin Garnett was a rookie in the NBA, and they're in Minnesota. They're playing the Bulls, and J.R. Ryder's like giving it to. He's just cooking Jordan, cooking him through 2 quarters, 3 quarters. He's on him, and KG's talking smack to MJ. He's like, "Go get this dude. You got this guy. He ain't nothing. And MJ just looks at them and goes, "Really?
Okay.
All right, watch this." And he put up like 30 in the fourth quarter. They lapped him. They spanked him. I feel like Al's brother just pulled a Kevin Garnett and just told Kansas City, "You're frauds, and you got nothing, and you suck." And the Chargers are going to lap you. And now KC's going to hear this and absolutely dummy this team on Sunday night. That is my concern, Al's brother, the gut instinct. Yet,
that I have motivated Kansas City.
You have personally called them out like Kevin Garnett and J.R. Ryder did to Michael Jordan back in the day. But I'm with you on this. I think you got to take the points, man. They beat the Raiders, Carolina by an aggregate of 5 points. They barely beat the Broncos. They shouldn't have. Brilliant play. Blocked a field goal. Bad kick. Still, every game is close, man. They don't blow teams out, and I think Harbaugh's got that team believing in L.A. I think he's got that defense cooking in L.A., Chargers always seem to play well at Arrowhead, regardless of who the coach is. I think Harbaugh is going to hype this team up to believe that it's the Super Bowl for these guys. I think it's a tough, like, lower scoring game. I think it's like 21-18 or something like that, and I think you take the points. If it was 3, it might be different. If it was 2.5, it might be different. 3.5, lock in the Chargers, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. And
lock it in.
Lock it in, boys. 23-17, Chiefs win. I cannot wait for Monday.
I know. Listen, man, it's amazing how, like, 5 or 6 picks swing you the other way.
I know.
And you just start thinking, what is
We
happening?
felt so great. American Thanksgiving, we felt good, didn't we?
Peaks and valleys, right? The peaks and valleys of what you're going. I got to be honest, and this, I don't want to, like, this is no laughing matter whatsoever. If anything, it's a very super serious thing. But, Hayes, you've mentioned that, like, that killer in New York,
assassin
or whatever.
In New York, yeah.
Does Luke? I swear to God, there are people that have written me said
like
that.
him.
I was like, my Lord, he looks like Luke.
Luke's
I don't
face.
know.
Yeah,
face.
what's up with that, man? Do you want to say anything publicly right now if the FBI is listening?
I'm glad you brought that up.
It's no laughing matter. I'm not trying to bring a joke.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, when I first saw that, I was like, that looks like Luke Willson. I'm like, what is going on? Like, it's only
all right,
one
let him
angle.
address it. Go ahead, Luke.
Go ahead.
What are you hearing? Like, you're not getting people aren't tapping your phones or something.
You're not, like, all of my boys from Windsor have been like, dude, are you at TSN right now? Or are you in New York? And I'm like, why? What are you talking about? They sent me that
crazy
thing,
story, man. Well, like
I
said,
I think there's a lot of security cameras around the TSN premises that should be able to account for my whereabouts because I spend an ungodly amount of time up there.
We can confirm that. Yes, you have an alibi in us. Al's brother and I will come to your defense. But that's. I was saying earlier, man. I was referencing how they got the picture of the guy because he was talking to some woman on the way out of a hostel.
Unbelievable.
He couldn't help himself.
What a putz.
He had the mask on the whole time, and then one woman starts talking him up, and he's like, I got to get the mask off to talk to her. And now he's going to get caught. It's crazy. Jeez. Like, it's a crazy turn of events.
It is crazy story.
And New York is so wild, man. It just goes on. Like, I've seen people write, someone was telling me that they were down there, like, this week, and they're like, I was just walking around. You wouldn't even know what was going on. Like, it just,
at least 6 or 7 news stories after that day.
Constantly. Constantly.
Yeah.
All right, picks are in. I don't know if any of us feel good about any of them, but we're on the Vikings, and we're on the Chargers, and you guys are on the Seahawks. Best of luck.
I love the Vikings. Love the Vikings.
Cheers.
Skol!
Love it, Partsy. Come on, Partsy. Let's make something happen this weekend. We need a big turn of events.
Skol,
I cannot
baby.
wait for it. There it is. Luke Willson, Al's brother. Jonas Siegel coming up on the Leaf weekend ahead. Capitals tonight, Penguins tomorrow, and our best bet still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. It's brought to you by Boston Pizza's new game day menu. Stop by your local BP for $7 touchdown pints, shareables for the whole crew, and weekly prizing up for grabs. Football game days are better at your local BP. Best bets later in the hour. Leafs Capitals tonight on TSN 4. Leafs in Pittsburgh tomorrow. Here's our buddy Jonas Siegel from The Athletic. Jonas, it's been quite the week for the Leafs. In terms of the goaltending battle, you and I were talking about it earlier this week. You know, Joseph Woll may be wanting some more time. Maybe Anthony Stolarz wants some more time. But I guess Berube and company, they followed your lead here. And it doesn't matter how the guy played the previous night. The other guy's going to go whenever the next game is.
Because they just don't want to ask for trouble, right? That's the whole thing. They don't want to gamble. I mean, why? This is what they should do, right? Like, they should just keep rotating. So Stolarz plays tonight, Woll plays Saturday, then they play in Jersey on Tuesday. So I would think that that's Stolarz. And then they come home, they play Anaheim, that's Woll. Like, why not just keep this going? Like, you have two guys who have never, taken even a half season workload before in the NHL. Keep this going as long as you can until it becomes a situation where one of them is not playing as well or one of them gets hurt and you have to kind of alter your plan. I just think it's working. I don't know why you're so against it. I don't get it.
No, I listen, it's working very, very well. I'm just saying, I mean, Noodles, you can speak to it at some point. Maybe one of these guys would say, give me an opportunity to run off 3 in a row. 4 in a row and show I can be a number one at some point.
I think that's the case, but we're only 25 games in, so we're not even a third of the season, so we're close to a third, but not. But, I think you allow this to play out, and then if Craig Berube will have a tough decision. Here's the biggest thing. If this is like this in March, and then you're heading into April, that's where you're going, okay, who do you trust? Who's our opponent? What's their career record look like? Now you start digging deeper into the numbers, how you want to play, who the team, again, they'll know behind closed doors, who the team trusts maybe a little bit more, who plays the puck differently. Like, there is some factors that will come in. But it's still early on. And, Jonas, I do agree with you that you can go back and forth, allow them to play, but you can allow them to sort this out through the process. Anthony Stolarz has never started more or played in more than 28 games in a season. And what is Joseph Woll's high? I think it's probably around the same thing. I would have to check, but that's in his career, right? It's less.
Yeah,
it's in his career total. It was like 36 coming into the season.
Right.
So I think there is a lot of time to sort this out, but I keep coming back to it, and Jonas, you can wait. Like, it's a good problem to have because you're
winning, man.
You're
They're
not worried
great.
about like, geez, I don't trust this guy or this guy's hurt and what's going on, and you're calling this guy up, and it's always been. I've always felt like the Leafs have had on their chart like 5 goalies that they've used in a season, or more. It feels like that. This year it's 3.
Well, and if you think back to last year, like what was going on, like it was right around this time, like Ilya Samsonov was placed on waivers, I think on New Year's Eve or like January 1st, something like that. And then Wall, I think, got hurt like right around now last year. Like, think how the crease was in previous years, like how disorderly it was, how chaotic it was. And like, eventually I think it'll, like what Noodles is saying, like it'll just take care of itself. Like, one guy is going to eventually, or maybe not eventually, but one guy might dip at some point. One guy might get hurt. Or, like, if you're lucky, like, you'll just, I guess luck is how you see it, but you get what Boston had, where it's like Allmark and Swayman, and, like, you just have 2 guys going back and forth. You don't have to overplay either one. You get great goaltending every night. It doesn't really seem to matter. And then the playoffs come around, and then you have this really difficult decision, awkward decision, and there's not really a right answer. But I think that's, like, the best possible outcome for them. They get to the playoffs, and they have to pick one of 2 guys who are both playing well.
None of the injured players will return tonight. Might see one or multiple return tomorrow, certainly in the next week. How many of these players are locks to play every single night when they return? Domi, Pacioretty, McMahon, Kampf, McCabe. We know McCabe's playing, and I think we know Domi's playing. But Pacioretty, McMahon, Kampf, are they locks when they're healthy? They definitely play.
I think everyone probably is. Like, I'm just looking at their lineup tonight, like who would come out. So Grabenkin would come out. Minton is like a question mark right now. Obviously, he's in the mix. Reeves might come out. Robertson might come out. Like, yeah, like he hasn't been able to score and isn't getting that much ice time. Like, I think Kampf is the interesting one in theory, because you look at, like, Connor Dewar has kind of just filled that void a little bit, but I can't see him sitting when he comes back. But, like, he's not close to returning. Like, he's not skating with them. They don't really give us timelines, so we don't know exactly how long he's going to be out. But their 4th line, their bottom 2 lines, like, they're going to need to find a way to build, like, a little bit more offense throughout their lineup. So you look at Domi, you look at Minton. I don't know. Like, I'm curious what they'll do when Domi comes back. Do they keep Domi on the wing? Do they put him back at center? Do they keep Minton around? Like, Hayes, you and I were talking about it earlier in the week. Like, I think they should just keep this going with Minton as long as they can. Just keep giving him games, keep getting him more experience. Like, I think he's played better than I would have expected. Like, he looks comfortable. Like, he doesn't look overwhelmed. He's brought them some offense, which I certainly wasn't expecting. But I think most of those guys, when they get back and they're healthy, they'll have a spot. Pacioretty, like, was playing really well before he got hurt. Like, they had found something with Pacioretty, Tavares, Nylander, and you look at who's playing with those guys right now. It's Pontus Holmberg. Like, he's another guy we didn't actually mention. I like, Craig Berube seems to love him. I haven't loved his season. I think he's played too much, but he's earned the trust of the coach, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, what do you make on the back end? Like, Yanni Hakanpää all of a sudden on the Finnish team, and I love how, like, Berube goes, yeah, he had a procedure. It's like, it's like a throwaway comment. It's like, what?
Yeah,
like,
he
had a
played
procedure.
2 games.
Like, is there? Where do you see Yanni Hakanpää? Hayes, you can weigh in on this too. Like, do you see him playing meaningful games down the stretch or into the playoffs, or is he more of an insurance policy if player X or player Y on your fifth and sixth is not available?
Hayes?
I don't think he's gonna. I don't think he'll be playing. I don't. I think it's been too long. I think the idea of Hakanpää makes a lot of sense because of his size, his penalty killing abilities, but they've been killing penalties pretty well. And I don't think they have a size issue necessarily with Tanev here and Ekman-Larsson here. McKay plays with edge. Riley wouldn't classify as a monster, but he's heavy.
Yeah.
I don't think that's something they're lacking, and I don't think of him as a big guy that's mean necessarily. I think he can be a little bit, but not like over the top.
Right.
So I don't know. I think it's a bonus if he's even your seventh. That would be how I would classify it right now. It's not a long-term commitment. It's not a lot of money. If he can get up to speed and be around and be a guy who's an injury replacement, veteran type, that makes sense to me, Jonas.
See, I actually surprisingly disagree. We never disagree, but I disagree with you.
Okay.
I actually think they really need him, because if you look at the way that their defense is structured right now, with how well McCabe and Tanev have played together, that forces them into a little bit of a bind with the rest of their groups, and suddenly they have to play Riley and Ekman-Larsson together, and they have to play Ekman-Larsson on his offside, and it's not been great, and I don't think it's an ideal situation. That's why you go back to the summer, and we were talking they need two right shots, and they end up bringing into Tanev and Hakanpää, and if Hakanpää can't play, suddenly that's your second pair, Riley, Ekman-Larsson, and I don't think that's ideal. Ideally, I think if you could play Riley with Hakanpää and you could play, Ekman-Larsson on his left side with somebody, I think that's a little cleaner. And so I kind of think he's important. Obviously, they've been really happy with how Connor Timmins has played. We'll see how that progresses. He was looking like he was actually going to come out of the lineup earlier this week had Jake McCabe been healthy. So I'm just flagging it. I kind of think they could use another right shot to play in their quote-unquote top four, whatever the top four is, because putting Ekman-Larsson and Riley together doesn't feel ideal to me.
I hear you. It's just a matter of whether or not Hakanpää could do it. That's where I'm at.
Sure.
I don't have faith that he's going to get back up to speed. I mean, something's seriously wrong with this guy's knee. The whole contract back and forth. He doesn't play, plays 2 games, now has a procedure. I just don't know if you can trust him anymore.
He's on Team Finland.
But he's on Team Finland somehow. With Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. Matthews with Marner tonight, I don't think that's a surprise considering the way they broke camp and then what we saw the other night in the third period. Do you think this one runs its course in the next week, 2 weeks? Do you think we see it for the majority of the season? How would you kind of project the Matthews and Marner partnership going forward?
I don't know. It feels like every coach now, it's only been 2 coaches really, Keefe and Berube, just always seems to want to go back to it. It's always when they're split, it's always well, when are they going to go back to it? So I kind of think that eventually this is kind of the way that they'll go, unless, that's the thing, projecting it is hard, because if one group goes cold, he's going to switch it. And I just liked how Marner looked with Tavares, and I think they found something interesting there that I don't think, those two haven't always clicked together, and I think during this recent stretch they were clicking. Defensively, it was really good. They were going up against top lines. I think Marner was playing really well. I like the look of Nylander and Matthews together, so I think we'll eventually see it flip again, and we'll flip again, and we'll flip again. But it does always feel like the coach's instinct is to get Matthews and Marner back together. And yet, if you go back to the playoffs last year, they didn't really play together. They were on separate lines. So I don't know. I don't know what combination you guys prefer, but I kind of liked how it was looking before. And yet I also get the decision to move it back just because of how their chemistry looked the other night and how it looks every time they get together. I don't know. I just think it'll flip and flip and flip. Yeah.
World-class playmaker, world-class goal scorer. Just kind of makes sense. It
does. Here's my thing, though, with Marner. I think because of Marner is a very unselfish player, it made sense to play him with Tavares early on. To see it come off his jersey, he's trying to establish his game. I think Marner's a very I don't know right word, forgiving player. He makes players around him really good, gives them good looks. So you knew what Matthews, you know what Nylander are. Tavares is the guy that I circle come into the season. Go, if this guy has a huge drop off, the Leafs could be in big trouble here. Mm-hmm. But Marner playing with him, Tavares looks like he's had, I didn't want to say a resurgence because he's been very consistent, but Tavares hasn't had this big drop-off. So I think Marner's a big part of that. Not that Nylander doesn't drive that line. It's just Nylander's not a pass-first type of player because he's a shooter as well, where Marner would have no problem. He had a breakaway the other day, tried to throw it back to Nyes 8 feet away. Mm-hmm. Like that's. I just think Marner has helped John Tavares settle into his season, and that's probably seductive too, is to keep him going along. You throw Marner with him so that he continues that production.
He puts it on a tee for you, like McDavid and Hyman last night. He'll give you those chances to feel good about your game.
Yeah.
And maybe it's flipped, Jonas, to an extent, because Matthews has had the more kind of tumultuous season with injuries and shooting percentage not going his way. I wouldn't be shocked if they're looking at Matthews saying, let's get him cooking again, because you need him, and he's looked really good so far this week, albeit against poor competition, but still 3 goals in 2 games, and I don't expect him to slow down, presuming he stays healthy.
Yeah, and that's like the one asterisk with the whole thing. It's like, is this done? Like, is whatever what was going on before over? Mm-hmm. And is it going to be like that 21-22 season where he just plays, but he's like, you can tell like something's like a little off, and like he still scores, and like his down year, that was a down year for him. He had 40 goals, and I think he had like 85 points, but it was noticeable. He wasn't like he was last year, where it's like every time he gets on the ice, you're like, he's going to score, and every time he gets a good look, it's like that's going in. And it didn't feel like that season, and it didn't feel like that at the start of this season. And you just wonder, like, does he get back to what he was last year? Can he get to that level again? Like that game the other night was a step in the right direction. He still doesn't look totally at that level, or really all that close. And he did miss a lot of time, so it makes a lot of sense. But you just wonder, does he get back to the level that he was at last year, where he was like 69 goals? Like, it was like, you think about it now, it's like 69 goals. Like, he's on pace right now, I think, for like 36, something like that. So I just wonder if he can get back to that level.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to bet against him, but it's the injuries that would do that, clearly. He's got 57 games left. If he's back at his level last year, the guy's going to score 50+. That's what he's going to do. But if he's injured, if he's not feeling 100%, then it becomes more of a conversation. Okay, fill out your game and be ready for the playoffs. Because come playoff time, there cannot be some excuse that something's been lingering all year. You can't waste your opportunity. Leafs Capitals tonight. Leafs in Pittsburgh tomorrow. All right, Jonas. Enjoy yourself this weekend. I'm sure we'll see you again soon. Thank you for doing this.
Later, guys.
There's Jonas Siegel of The Athletic. Mail It In Fridays brought to you by Boston Pizza's new game day menu. Stop by your local BP for $7 touchdown pints. Shareables for the whole crew and weekly prizing up for grabs. Football game days are better at your local BP. We'll come back with our best bets, wrap up a busy week, and look ahead to a busy weekend as well. OverDrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2. All right, today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. 3-game parlay for Sunday in the NFL. Tennessee laying 3.5. I'm on it. The Jags, their season's over. They've been awful all year. Now Lawrence is out. Yeah. Tennessee's not great, but they're at home and they're a lot better. I think they cover that. I'm on the Vikings. Al's brother and I, we have committed to this, laying 5.5 at home against Kirk Cousins. Cousins back in Minnesota for the first time. And Miami laying 5.5 at home against the Jets. Miami's got to get this to stay in the hunt. The hunt might be over anyway. But the Jets, I'm fading them every single week. They don't win. They don't cover. They're a mess. They got bad injuries, especially on the defensive side of things. I like Miami big on Sunday. That parlay paying plus 595. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app is the exclusive home of the OverDrive same-game parlay. Please play responsibly. 19+, physically located in Ontario. All right, double shot for the Leafs. Raptors in action. NFL action. Juan Soto maybe by Monday at 4 p.m. is decided on a team, Noodles.
Wow.
I think that might happen as well.
Wow.
Monday's going to be a banger. It's going to be a good one. We can't wait for it.
Can't wait for it. I agree. I think lots moving.
Lots of moving pieces here. Thanks to everyone behind the scenes for helping out. We appreciate it. Everyone for tuning in today. TV, radio, podcast, web. We appreciate that. We're out of here. Enjoy your evenings. Enjoy your weekends. We're back Monday at
4 p.m.
We'll chat then.
Chat then.